the review because there's pretty much a full page devoted to it in The Guardian. Essentially, there is a government whistleblowing law that came in when it was hit by a water spout and it fell. Matthew Shaw is chair of the Maritime Search and Rescue Council. It promotes good training and research on safety in this field, and he also used to work at the Italian Coast Guard. Good morning, Matthew. Morning. What were your first thoughts when you heard about
indicates that there's a lot of windage area there, so even though the sails were more than likely stowed to the actual mast and the other equipment on board the vessel above the waterline, almost in itself acts like a sail, especially with it being so high. So as the wind picked up either through the water spout or through the extreme weather that occurred, the impacted on the vessel's angle that it sits in the water, which is by the accounts has pushed the vessel over to the waterline.
Are there any questions for the authorities in this field? Kind of thing that is part of what you do.
Also, those kind of warnings such as water spouts. However, there are still incredibly rare weather events. We have to consider how we could forecast what portions of or crew make to themselves with. They're not as common as other weather events.
So currently they can't be.
I believe in Chicago. They have kicked off the Democratic convention. Joe
fight a second term, instead took to the stage to pass on the torch.
Commoners understand this nation must continue to be a place of possibilities. I promise I'll be the best volunteer Harrison Wallace and Camden ever seen.
Joe Biden attacked Donald Trump's vision for the future and said America is now at a moral crossroads.
You've heard me say before, we're facing an inflection point. One of those rare moments in history. The decisions we make now determine the fate of our nation and the world. We're in the battle for the very soul of America.
The arena is to capacity for this moment. People are being turned away at the door, and you can feel the warmth in the crowd for Joe Biden. Democrats who were once in despair about his failings are tonight full of appreciation. What we're watching right now is essentially Joe Biden's goodbye. There was a standing ovation for Hillary Clinton, who fought and lost to Donald Trump in 2016, and knows what it's like to be on the end of his personal attack.
So it is no surprise, is it, that he is lying about Kamala's record? He's mocking her name and her laugh. Sounds familiar.
Polling indicates Kamala Harris is now leading Donald Trump in key battleground states. But Hillary Clinton warned the party not to be complacent.
We have him on the run now. No matter what the polls say, we can't let up.
Outside the arena, tens of thousands of people marched over the war in Gaza, protesting against Joe Biden's support for Israel. Inside, it featured only briefly, as a popular left-wing congresswoman, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, called for a ceasefire.
And she is working tirelessly to secure a ceasefire in Gaza and bringing hostages home. She will fight for every woman and every girl, even those who are not fighting for her.
One of the most emotive and divisive issues for America also featured in many speeches. Kamala Harris has made a woman's right to an abortion a central part of her campaign.
Trump's actions have resulted in extreme bans on abortion, even in cases of rape, incest, and non-viable pregnancies. That fails any test of humanity.
Voters are still getting to know Kamala Harris. This week is seen as an opportunity for her to reintroduce herself to the country. Her nomination has turned the presidential race on its head, and Democrats are thoroughly enjoying it. Emma Vardy reporting from Chicago. It is 8 minutes to 7. Doctors in India are continuing to take part in a national strike in protest of the rape and murder of a young woman who was resting in an empty room at her hospital in Kolkata when she was attacked. Her family had pinned their hopes of a better life onto her training in bright future, and her father has revealed in an interview with the BBC just what they are doing. To protect the family's identity, his words have been voiced by one of our colleagues.
We come from a lower class background and we built up everything by ourselves. And suddenly now at the age of 62, all my dreams have been shattered. We want the harshest punishment for this. Our state, our country, even the whole world is asking for justice. And I'm mentioning the role of the hospital because when it comes to leave for work, it remained tense until she called and informed us that she had reached the hospital safely. Only then we would feel relieved. But the hospital is the place where something so barbaric happened to her while on duty. All of our relatives and neighbors used to tell me we managed to make their daughter a doctor only by running a dental shop. And I used to say no, I did not believe it.
response from the government that would give you the safety assurances that would
Well, the Union government is reluctant to concede the Central Act. They are pointing out there are 25 state laws, which is adequate. It is our experience that this is inadequate because after hundreds of cases of hospital attacks, barely there are one or two convictions. What happened in Calcutta is qualitatively different, and the hospital has suddenly become unsafe for women members especially, and it's a crime that has taken place. So apart from a different central law, we also by law mandatory security protocols in all the large hospitals across the country.
You are therefore looking for a response from the central government, the union government, and they seem to be saying that it's a matter for individual states in India. Are hospitals not able to put the kind of security measures that you are asking for in place themselves?
Most tertiary hospitals, private sector have a security protocol in place. This is more about medical colleges, 706 medical colleges exactly. And both in government and private medical colleges, the private hospitals, and the hospital, medical college hospitals have to have a security protocol. And the demand is that yes, we need a declaration that hospitals are safe zones.
And isn't the issue much wider than the issue that has been underlined in dark terms by what happened to this young woman on the brink of a career in your field, which is just about the safety of women in all kinds of walks of life, and not even necessarily professional walks of life, the young women that India needs to go out and work.
Exactly. That's the point we are making. Now, fortunately, we have this Indian Medical Association, which can stand up for not only the women doctors, but for the women of India, for them to go work and be in any space they want.
And if you don't get the central government response you want, is it not possible for your demands to be met by the different states?
States would be ready. There is an enabling law that the federal government can take with the consent of the states. It is possible. The political will is there. So we are just waiting for that political will to the central government.
Dr. R.V.S. from the Indian Medical Association, thank you.
3 minutes to 7. Thomas Schaffenegger has the weather. Morning again.
Good morning again. Yes, a very lucky day on the Wednesday across the northern half of the UK in particular. Also heavy showers sweeping in, and plenty have already done so. Currently, the blustery weather is across Lancashire and parts of the Lake District, also in the south of Wales. Pretty heavy rain in places with gusts of wind. So I think for most of the morning and into the afternoon, pretty much what it's going to be across the north of the UK. Showers and those strong winds, and the temperatures at times, temperatures only around about 15 to 16 degrees from those strong gusts of wind. Now further south across the country it's going to be a better picture, although showers are expected too. The best of the sunshine will be around the North Sea coasts, the Channel coast, the Midlands, East Anglia and the South East. And here in the sunshine it'll be warmest too, with temperatures approaching the low to mid 20s, but coastal areas will be a little bit cooler. That takes us into the forecast for tonight. The winds will ease, but not completely. It'll still be quite breezy overnight. Morning temperatures early on Wednesday will be around 10 to 12 degrees, and then an outlook for Wednesday itself. Again, it's the northern half of the UK, and for a very windy and wet picture, especially Northern Ireland, the northwest of England, and also Scotland. Really, that is the outlook for the rest of the week. At times, it's going to be very windy. In fact, we have the remnants of an ex-hurricane on the way to it will be quite so windy, but certainly feel it on the northwest of the UK.
Thomas, thank you very much.
Sherwood, Series 2.
There's on a knife edge out there.
Starts Sunday on BBC iPlayer.
In the next hour of this program, he was angry, he was passionate, he was very, very well received by the audience, but he was doing it all after prime time was over on national television, at least in the east of the country. We examine what Joe Biden's been telling us.
You're listening to Today on BBC Radio 4 in London and Chicago. It's 7 o'clock on Tuesday, the 20th of August. The headlines this morning: the outgoing US President Joe Biden has endorsed Kamala Harris as his successor in a passionate defense of his record at the Democratic Party's national convention. Searches are resuming off Sicily for 6 people, including the British tech tycoon Mike Lynch, after their yacht capsized more than 24 hours ago. And a rocket engine has exploded during testing at the UK's new spaceport in Sheffield. The BBC News is read by Caroline Hayes. An emotional Joe Biden has told Democratic supporters that they're in a battle for the very soul of America. Speech at times drowned out by Democratic presidential candidate to take on Donald Trump. From Chicago, on North America, actually, Sarah Smith has this report.
To the rafters as he arrived on stage by a party that was, in effect, saying goodbye to him. During more than 4.5 minutes of sustained applause, some of his supporters had tears in their eyes, and it looked like he did too. Running through his achievements in office, he was able to list record job creation, massive spending on infrastructure, a gun safety law, and he proclaimed that despite the Russian invasion, Ukraine is still free. He also said he wasn't finished yet.
I've got 5 months left in my presidency. I've got a lot to do. I intend to get it done. See, it's been the honor of my lifetime to serve as your president. I love the job, but I love my country more.
It must have been very bittersweet to have his party celebrating him so loudly because he agreed to step aside, congratulating him on his achievements because he's handing over to a younger candidate. President Biden knows the best way to cement his legacy and what he managed to get done as president is to get Kamala Harris elected as his successor. And he said he would be the best volunteer the Harris campaign could ever have.
The search for 6 people missing after a luxury yacht sank off the coast of Sicily is resuming this morning. Among them, the British technology tycoon Mike Lynch and his daughter. The 180-foot yacht went down in a storm yesterday. 15 people were rescued, including his Church's wife, and the Baccaras, and a 1-year-old British girl. A man's body is recovered. From Sicily, our correspondent Mark Lowen reports.
Morning for emerging those engulfed by the sea as their seaboat Barbasian capsized here in Portichello. As well as the tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch and his 18-year-old daughter Hannah, Sicily Civil Protection says Jonathan Burma, the chairman of the investment bank Morgan Stanley International, and much more lawyer for Mr. Lynch are among the 6 passengers still missing. I watched as 5 rescue teams returned to shore late last night, with the operation to resume this morning. It's thought likely that bodies will be found trapped on the seabed in the wreckage of the Barbasian, which was hit by a water storm, a tornado-like column of left water that snapped the mast, with the yacht quickly swallowed up by the waves.
2 nights ago, Mike Lynch was convicted on the US on 12 charges of terrorism. Hit by a car in Cambridgeshire on Saturday. Lord, Mr. Chamberlain, who was cleared, said he'd been fatally injured while out running. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is travelling to Egypt as he continues his push for a ceasefire and hostage release deal in Gaza. After talks in Jerusalem yesterday, Mr. Blinken said Israel had accepted what he called a bridging proposal and urged Hamas to do the same. All from our correspondent in Jerusalem, John Donnison.
Antony Blinken says he got what he came for in Israel. He says Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu accepts and supports the so-called bridging proposal towards a ceasefire and hostage release deal in Gaza. He US Secretary of State now heads to Egypt and Qatar to try to get them to put pressure on Hamas to do the same. But the Islamist group has called US talk of progress an illusion, and at least publicly there is little sign that either Hamas or Israel is committed to a deal. Mr. Blinken said it was crucial that everyone refrain from actions that would escalate tensions. Overnight, Israel's military says it targeted a Hezbollah weapons store in Lebanon, and Hamas says a number of its senior figures were killed in Israeli airstrikes in Gaza yesterday. They also claimed to have been involved in a bomb attack in Tel Aviv on Sunday.
A community in southern Israel has announced the death of a hostage being held in Gaza. A statement from kibbutz near Oz said Avraham Munda, who was 79, was the victim of months of physical and mental torture. Israeli media say his wife, daughter and grandson were also held hostage, but were released as part of the swap deal last November. Thousands of Rohingya Muslims have fled to Bangladesh in the past 2 weeks after facing violence again in Myanmar. BBC's gathered evidence of a particularly deadly attack on the 4th of August, in which scores of fleeing Rohingyas were bombed, they say, by a rebel group. Our South Asia correspondent, Kingsley Murray, sent this report from Bangladesh.
Boats filled with Rohingyas have been arriving in Bangladesh over the past 2 weeks. The surge began after an attack on the 5th of August. Survivors and eyewitnesses of the bombing have told the BBC that they were attacked by the insurgent Arab Army, a group that's fighting against Myanmar's military in the country's civil war. The group has said it has no connection with the attack. Videos of the aftermath of the bombing have been verified by the BBC. They show dozens of dead, a significant number of them women and children. The accusations raise serious questions for the Arab Army, which has projected itself as a resistance group fighting on behalf of the people against the military junta.
A gay British-Mexican man who spent 44 days in prison in Qatar has warned other LGBT people to be careful when visiting the country. Manuel Ferrero Avina was arrested in a police sting involving the gay dating app Grindr. As told the BBC, he was targeted for his sexuality, and international human rights organisations have raised concerns about the case. Qatari officials insist the arrest was solely for drug offences. More details from our LGBT and identity reporter Josh Parry.
Until February, Manuel Guerrero Avina spent 7 years in Qatar. Although homosexuality is illegal in the country, he claimed there was an unwritten rule that what happened in private would go unpunished. However, after arranging to meet a man he'd been messaging online, who later turned out to be part of an undercover police operation, he was arrested and later convicted of drug offences. Mr. Guerrero Avina, who is now back in the UK, believes his arrest was motivated by his sexuality.
If this was a drug case, they would be asking, where did you get the substances that they claim they are mine? But the full interrogation was about sexual partners and their sexual preferences.
Qatari officials told the BBC Mr. Guerrero Avina was arrested for possessing an illegal substance, and that no other factors were considered when making the arrest. They said Mr. Guerrero Avina and his family have made what they call numerous false allegations in an attempt to generate public sympathy for his case.
A rocket engine has exploded during a test at Britain's new spaceport in Shetland. The test was carried out by German company RFA, who hope eventually to send the UK's first vertical rocket into orbit. 3 months ago, its first test at the Saturn spaceport on the Ernst was declared a success. Our Scotland correspondent Lorna Gordon was watching in Shetland.
The full 9-engine ground-based test was part of a number of trials due to be carried out before RFA progressed to launching its rockets into space. A small crowd had gathered across a bay from the spaceport to watch. Large flames and plumes of smoke could initially be seen shooting horizontally from the side of the rocket, and there were loud bangs as the entire structure was then engulfed by fire. In a statement, Saxford Spaceport said all safety protocols were fully observed, and the site was evacuated prior to the test, leaving no staff at risk. RFA said the data they had gathered would be analysed, and their goal would be to return to regular operations as soon as possible.
Lorna Gordon reporting.
Back at 7:09. Joe Biden wanted the job himself. He wanted to carry on as president, to fight the next election, to see off Donald Trump, and as he saw it, to rescue democracy. But here in Chicago, just an hour or two ago, he found himself speaking as very much the Warmer Act on the opening day of an event that is no longer in his control. In fact, he was pushed back to a spot that was, by the time they got to it, not even in prime time on television. He gave it his all. Something he said he had always done.
Like many of you, I give my heart and soul to our nation. And I've been blessed a million times returned for the support of the American people. I've really been too young to be in the Senate because I wasn't 30 yet, and too old to stay as president. But I hope you know how grateful I am to all of you.
It wasn't an easy speech to make. He needed to balance talking up his presidency with a proper sense of respect for the woman and the place of politics.
She's tough. She's experienced. And she has enormous integrity. Enormous integrity. Her story represents the best American story. And like many of our presidents, she's also like integrity.
Let's talk to Sarah Smith, our North editor, who was watching it all. No doubt, Sarah, at all, was there, about the affection, the genuine affection that came from those watching to him, particularly when he started?
Oh, absolutely. It was really, really emotional on the floor of the convention. Almost 5 minutes of applause as he came on stage, and he looked really, really moved by that as well. And you had the sense that you were about to watch quite a significant political moment. I mean, he was effectively saying goodbye, even though he's got 5 months left in his presidency. And this was the opportunity for his party to say thank you to him for over 50 years of elected public service, as well as of his one term as president. And so there was a very high expectation. And I'm sorry to say, I just don't think the speech measured up. It was a pretty boilerplate recitation of the things he has achieved in office, and by the time he got to the end of it, he was praising Kamala Harris, as you heard there, but he didn't sound like a man who was happy to hand over the reins, to be perfectly honest. He did say that he loved the job as president, but he just loved his country more, and I just think he gave a sense of having actually come to terms with the idea that he was pushed aside effectively for a younger candidate because his party felt he was too old, voters thought he was too old to carry on. It was dignified, but it wasn't a particularly gracious way of saying goodbye, I don't think.
Yeah, it's a fascinating point, that, isn't it? We're going to hear from Anita Dunn later.